Welcome to another Roll for Crit Top 10 list. Today is one worth celebrating because it's about party games.
Yeah.
You know, these are your games where you tend to fit maybe more than just two. That tends to be the case. I think some of these might be able to be played with two. I'm not sure because I don't know everything on Jonathan's list.
Yeah. We're looking at games for parties. Probably games that fit, I would say, on average, 5 or more players. And probably games that are a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit easier to learn the rules for. I mean, there's not a hard and fast definition for a party game, so this may be something we discuss as we get into it.
Right. I guess we'll save that for the end. Let's just go straight into the lists.
Yeah, that's right. We don't waste any time. So, again, as we said, we've each compiled a list of our 10 favorite party games in the board game world. And as always, it was difficult to decide on a top 10 because I love party games. There's a lot of good ones out there. But I will begin with my number 10. By the way, we'll have our phones as reference, but don't worry. We're going to talk to you directly. My number 10 favorite party game is one that's been around for a long time. I think it's on a lot of people's lists, and we've played it plenty of times. That's probably the case for most of these. And that's Dixit. Dixit is the game in which you are trying to interpret cards with different surrealist sort of art on it, and everyone is trying to match their cards to a prompt, and then you have to try to guess which one you think the player who gave that prompt played. And it's a lot of fun in a group. It's very silly. Anybody can play it. You really don't need to pick up on the rules too much to get the hang of it. Of course, I think I actually like even more than Dixit, the kind of other version of it, not technically, it's unofficially another version, which is Mysterium. But I think for a party setting, I'm leaning towards Dixit. It's just got a more lighthearted vibe to it.
Yeah, I mean, I love this game. It's in my top 20 list. And as for Mysterium...
Of all time, not just party games.
Yes. Yeah, we secretly do 20 lists too. But what I found was interesting, because I'm just from your description now, I'm really curious, because I thought this was going to be on your list. I look up the keyword party games on Board Game Geek, always just to be like, oh, I forgot about that. Mysterium was there, so I'm like, oh, Jonathan's definitely going to say that. Now I'm like, oh, I'm not so sure anymore.
Yeah, I switch it up a little bit.
I will discuss my thoughts on that, I think, for the end when we discuss what is a party game, but for it. But it is my turn. Mm-hmm. So my number 10 is going to, I think, one of our first party games, and that's Wits and Wager. You will be asked trivia questions, then each player will write down what they think the answer is. It's always a number. And then you will put all your answers in the center of the table. And you will organize them based on how big and small they are. Then people will bet on who they think is right. So this isn't simply just knowing the right answer. Sometimes you want to make sure that you put maybe a wrong answer if people think that you know the right answer. And maybe if you don't know, you don't have to feel bad because you get more points from betting on the right one. And I think that's how a lot of good trivia games are done. And trivia is like one of the classic party games. I mean, there's plenty of people who go to trivia nights at bars and stuff. So it just seems like it had to be mentioned on at least one of our lists.
Yeah, it's definitely, trivia games are tough, and they found a great solution to make it so the person who has the most free time to read Wikipedia all day isn't just going to be the winner. And we're doing this snake style, which means that you're up again with your number 9.
My number 9 is probably, I think it might be the newest one on my list in terms of we've played, and could go up more if we've played it more, and that's Monstrosity. In this game, you take turns with one person describing the art on a card of some kind of monster, and other people have to draw it. Then you're going to sort of pretty much vote on which one you think is the best and see how close you are, and you all laugh when you see how completely different it is. A little bit of a spoiler, I think, to my list. There's going to be a lot of dry erase marker games on mine.
That's usually a trend in party games. For some reason, those two things just fit together very well. Yeah, Monstrosity. We recently had Eric Slauson, the designer, on our podcast. A very fun game that's like really, it's sweeping the party game nation, I think. Who doesn't love a good monster now?
It's got monsters. It's got drawing. It's great. And it does also fit, even though we've only played it at like the medium count. It can go up to 8 from what I've looked. So
yeah, I think that's
definitely something I think is a plus for a party game.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely something to take into consideration. All right, so then it's back to me now for my number 9. And number 9 on my list doesn't have dry erase markers, but it does have pencil and paper, quite a bit of it. It's the game Hive Mind. In this game, there is some kind of a prompt, so maybe it's name 3 colors or something even more complicated. Name 3 sci-fi movies. And everybody has to write down the first 3 things that come into their head, or they could spend a little time to think on it. And then you compare answers. And your goal is to come up with answers that you think everyone else in the group also said. The more people who shared the same answer as you, the more points you get. So it's almost like a little bit like a trivia game, only you don't have to know the right answer. You just want to write down what you think people will say. So even if you don't agree with your answer, maybe it's like name your 3 favorite foods. You just want to write down what you think other people's favorite foods are. Very fun game that's always is a hit in our groups, and very, very replayable. I mean, it's another one of those, again, party games that it's so easy to play. Anybody can enjoy this game. And I love it.
Yeah. My friend had a bachelor party, and that was one of the games I borrowed and from you, of course, brought some of my own. That one was the hit.
Yeah.
That everyone wanted to keep playing. And yet, I forgot about it.
Well, that's why we both have lists, people, for reasons just like that. I'm glad you forgot about it. It means our lists will be a little more different because I feel like we're going to have a lot of overlap as always. But we'll see. I'll tell you already, we have a little bit of overlap because my number 8 is Wits and Wagers. I specifically said the party edition, but of course any of them kind of work. And for all the reasons that you already said, it's a trivia game where you don't need to know trivia. If you're a fan of something like The Price is Right, this is probably the closest you can get to that in a board game. And it's the perfect game. I mean, the party edition is great, but they also have ones that have more involved betting. There's like the Vegas version and some other ones. And even for a trivia game, I'll often just forget the answers. So I feel like even if you see the same questions again, it still works. So yeah, it's the best. I think it is, honestly, it's my favorite trivia game. That's for
sure. While I like, and I put this on my list because I actually like it. There are other things like Trivia Pursuit, for example, which is probably the most popular trivia game. I'm not crazy about. I played a bunch of the digital version because I know I have friends who enjoy that. And sometimes it's just annoying to be like, well, this just reminds me how stupid I am and don't know anything about geography or pop and music and stuff.
Right.
But this is like, okay, maybe I don't know what this is, but like, how many pizzas does the average American eat? Well, I'll put this number. And then you also get to see when people do like weird, like, you thought that much or that little?
Yeah, you just need to piggyback on who you think does know the answer. All right, so back to you for number 7.
My
number 8, sorry.
Yes, my number 8 is going with one I know is going to be higher on your list, but it's one that is, I think it's a bit niche, but if you fill that niche, it's almost a must-have, and that's 2 Rooms and a Boom. The reason why I say this is you want at least 11 people, really. I think you can go less with some of the expansions now, but if you have that big of a crowd, this is the game you got to have on your shelf. The way it works is, for the basic rules, there is a president and a bomber, and you're going to take rounds with people hiding their roles. There's other roles as well. But in the end, the president doesn't want to be in the same room as the bomber, and the bomber wants to be in the same room. So you're going to be exchanging hostages. Is that what they call them?
Yep, that sure is.
Back between the rooms, and people discuss and stuff. And there's plenty of other roles, such as there's spies, there's people who can't show their card, people who have to show their card, and more advanced rules. The more people you have, the best thing this is. It's just, if you do hit that cap, and sometimes you're like just short of it being good, which is why it's a little bit lower. But when you have that, it's just so nice to have.
Yeah, there's zombies. I mean, you'll probably see this at conventions where sometimes they'll play with like 50 people.
Because it can support that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I will neither confirm nor deny its placement on my list.
But you can agree it's a solid choice.
I'll agree. It's a solid choice for sure.
All right. So moving onwards, we're on 6 now, right?
No, isn't it your 7?
Oh, yes. No, 8. Because you said 7 before. You threw me off.
I messed up. It's on me.
My number 7 is actually Dixit. It's a little lower because I really do like this game a lot, and it didn't make my list. But in terms of, I feel the party game aspect of it, some reason I feel like it, even though other games are fine at lower count, I want like more. It doesn't hit as high of a count to me. Which is, I know it's really weird considering I made the 20 list, and I don't think many of these games did, but I just felt like, yes, I do love this game. But it just, I feel like if I'm actually having a party I don't know if I'm bringing this out. It's more of like, it's definitely the game I'm going to bring out for people who are newer to board games.
That's fair. But still, number 7 is, of all time, is pretty, it's nothing to sneeze at. That's still pretty good.
Yep.
But yeah, there was at least one game that I didn't put on my list just because the player count wasn't quite as high as I thought it should be.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe we'll get into that later. Okay, so now it's back to me for my 7 and 6. My number 7 is another drawing game. Originally had dry erase markers, but then a new edition moved to pencil and paper. That game is Pictomania. This is from Czech Games, Vladimir Fatil design, where you're all trying to draw a word that is public, but no one knows which word everyone is drawing. And while you're drawing your own word, you're also looking around and you have to guess what everyone else is drawing. It's basically Pictionary on crack. It's a crazy version of that idea, and for my money, I think it is the best drawing board game. It's the most fun that I've had. It can be a little overwhelming. It can be a little crazy, but just like with how Wits and Wagers, you don't need to be good at trivia, or like more specifically like Monstrosity, you don't need to be good at drawing. Same thing for this. You don't need to be a good artist to have fun playing Pictomania.
That is definitely a challenge with a lot of drawing games because I love those. And one of the ones I do really enjoy a lot is Mangaka, and I think also Comic Creator is what they call it, the second one, which is more American themed, but same thing. Thing is, though, that one really, you don't feel good if you can't draw. Just like the trivia games. It needs that right audience.
Yeah.
And games like these, though, part of the fun is if you just do a weird, like, what is that? Oh, it's supposed to be, that's a donkey?
Yeah. Some very funny moments. That's a must for a party game. You got to have those ridiculous moments. And then my number 6 is... we've just loved this game, and it is Just One. This is a party game wherein you have to get someone to guess a word. Everybody gives them a clue, but they can only use one word as their clue. And if 2 people write the same clue, then they cancel out and the guesser doesn't get to see that one. So you're trying to figure out a balance between a really specific clue and a really something that's maybe a little more obscure because you don't want to write the same thing as someone else. Sort of combine some of the stuff from Hive Mind with a word guessing game. Super, super fun. And like a lot of the best games on this list, one of those games you can just play over and over again and everybody's gonna have a good time.
I'll just say one thing about this.
Mm-hmm. Just one.
Stay tuned to see if it's on my list.
All right, that was just one.
So my number 6 is a game that I have just adored, and we've had the chance to have the creator and talk to him a lot, and that's Barpig.
Oh,
I love this game. This is I believe it's technically the only drinking game on my list. Anything can be made into a drinking game. One of the reasons I like this one, though, is obviously you don't have to feel bad if you do not drink. That's one of the issues that always comes across with a drinking game. But it has all this hilarity. I love the theme of it. The artwork is cute, and it's just, I always think it has fun. It's very simple, but still feels definitely a lot more gamier compared to the rest. So I think it somehow does a very hard balance for any party game to be like beyond just simply, it's charades or something, to being too complex for people like, I'm not really in the mood to learn this rule set or something.
Yeah, a fun game with a lot of different kind of mini games within it. So if you like a game that's very almost more like activities, this is a good game.
Yeah, it's definitely almost that. I mean, this is like the video games are like Mario Party-esque where you just play a bunch of mini games, except there's no random star.
There's no random stars that you can't predict. Yeah, and I think enhanced if you're a little tipsy.
Oh yeah, no,
like a lot of these games.
But like I said, you don't have to feel bad about it, which is good
for sure.
So moving on though, my number 5, another one that you really want that much higher player count, and on the more gamier side is Masquerade. This was actually one of my earliest pickups. The idea behind it is every person has a secret role with different powers, and you're trying to collect money and take out other people. But odds are you're going to be shuffling around with cards. And I thought this does such a great job because it has that higher player count compared to the rest. This is I have to double check my list before I say it, but like I think my only secret role kind of game, which I'm not usually as big of a fan, but I just love how, especially when you get that bigger player counts of like when cards get shuffled, like, oh, I think Jonathan was the queen like 2 rounds ago, but like Will took it, then we all passed because then, and it just makes it a lot easier. Then it's less of a puzzle of just like, okay, I know, like in some other games, I know you're this role or something, not to call out a game or something.
Yeah, well, it's a little different, right? That if I recall, you don't have a fixed. It's more like you are. I guess it's more like something like coup, where because your role can change.
Yes, that's what I meant. There's a lot more shuffling anymore because you're like, oh, I really want that card to get a lot of money. But wait, it went from that person to that person to that. And
right.
And I just think it does such a great job for, once again, those higher player counts. It's probably like most games you want 4 people. And those aren't, I mean, they could be party games, but they're not. This is one of those ones that are like just before 2 Rooms and a Boom. Yeah. It's like that's a transition period.
Yeah, I'm very bad at that game. I cannot. My memory, I will just like give up. I'm like, I can't even. Here's a card. I don't know what happened. I lose track after one swap. Is it back to me?
I believe it is. Yes.
I believe it is. So that was Masquerade, your number 5. Now my number 5, and this one may shock some people, you included. More than I.
If you sway Battlestar Galactica.
No. My number 5, I said The Resistance Avalon. And of course, it's one of my favorite games, heavy social deduction game where you are attempting to discover who the bad guys are, or if you are one of the bad guys, you're trying to secretly sabotage missions. Of course, based on things like Werewolf, but refines the concept, gamifies it a little more, makes it a little bit quicker. One of my all-time favorites, the reason it's not like number 1 on my list is just because I think it's more of for a specific kind of party, because there can be some arguments that arise from this one. And also I'm feeling like, we haven't played enough of it yet, but there's the new version called Quest. And I'm like, maybe Quest will replace Avalon for me. I don't know yet. The Resistance Avalon, I still love it. And I do think when you have the right group for it, it's a classic for a reason in my book, or any version of the Resistance, I suppose. And then I'll stick on the same theme because my number 4 is that, but for me, it's a better party game because it takes it even further in the party direction. One of my favorites is Werewords. Werewords is 20 questions meets Werewolf. Uses an app, and you are trying to guess a word by asking yes or no questions, but someone is secretly a werewolf and they maybe are asking misleading questions to throw people off the track. There's also other roles you can throw in that will make it more complicated than that. And it's so goofy and fun. It combines my 2 greatest loves, hidden roles and word games, and apps, I suppose. There's a third love, and werewolves. I love them too. A lot of things I love about this game. And again, one that I could just keep playing again and again and again and have fun with it.
I agree, and it does have a couple faults sometimes that I've seen come up, but overall, I have really loved it, which is why I also put it at 4.
Hey-o!
So, wow, right. I could not. I'm like, no, he is not. Oh, he is.
I am, and I did.
So, definitely varied agreement. We do love it, but just short of top 3.
Just short.
So, my number 3, a word game that I really love, and I love for this because party game-wise, this is a team versus team game, and that's Decrypto. In this game, each team has secret words, and you're trying to make sure people can guess the right words without giving your clues to your opponents, make them too easy. And I've just always had so much fun with this because it's this fun little huddling and trying to think of really clever ways to really communicate with the people on your side. This is definitely one of those games where I think you're going to get a lot more fun with people you know, but not always. It's not going to be the kind of game which has seemingly so far, I mean, I could be wrong, but like, for example, Apples to Apples has not made either of our lists. And one of the reasons I will say it has not supposedly made mine is definitely inside jokes can ruin it. And I don't think that Decrypto's able to get around that.
Yeah. That's definitely something that I think a bunch of these games often have that as a stipulation of like not doing too much inside references. I think it's a smart play. Yeah, and Decrypto's a great one, a great team-based word game that we have had a lot of fun with. So that's your 3? That's your 3. So back to me for my 3. Here we go. We're getting into the big leagues. My number 3, not a surprise at all to people that I love this game a lot. It's Concept. Concept, it's like charades, only it's on a board. So you don't talk. Instead, you point to little pictures and you try to get people to guess. It could be a word, a phrase, a movie, whatever it is on a card, or you could just make up your own categories like you would with regular charades. And they have official rules where you're playing on teams, but we usually just go crazy and say, just do whatever you want. One person thinks of one, the next person thinks of one. It's such a simple game that I really, really enjoy, again, because You can play it a bunch of times. I feel like this one, more than maybe any other one on my list, really has a strong feeling of just one more. Somebody always says, oh, no, I want to do one now because I'll show you how it's done. Or when you finish describing one, they'll say, oh, I would have done this to explain that. And it's an interesting way to see like how people's brains work sometimes. I think it's just going to be like a classic party game for me always that I go back to. That's what it's been so far. Oh, and then my number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And my number 2 is another right along those same lines. I think this one is a classic party game that, whereas concept, I think a lot of people like it, but it hasn't quite hit like mainstream critical mass. This one has, and that's Codenames. And Codenames, I do think this is the ultimate word game. Maybe there will be better word games, but I think this is the ultimate one, if that makes any sense, wherein you are split into teams and you're trying to get your team to guess words based on clues that combine different aspects of the cards on the table. Can be a very thinky game. There can be long pauses when people are trying to come up with really good clues, which can be a bit of a bummer sometimes. But for me, overall, it's worth it. I think I don't need to sell anybody on Codenames. Everybody loves it already. So that's my number 2.
My 2 is Pictomania.
Wow.
I love drawing games. And in fact, I get really angry because somehow Pictomania often gets picked when I'm like going out to get the dinner or I'm out doing something else. And I want to be at the table whenever it's happening. I love it. I think it's so much fun. It adds the drawing mechanic, but in this really interesting twist where it almost punishes you for taking too long to do detailed drawing because you want to try to guess people's things and get points that way. So I'm a big fan of it. But it isn't enough to beat my number 1.
Oh boy, I'm very curious.
Which is Just One. I have not brought this to a group, just like you said with Hive Mind, and people haven't fallen in love with it. That is a game everyone's just like, can we just do another round or another this or just another words, and just having so much fun. Of all the games on my list, that is the one that has perked up people so much. I feel like, especially both of the heavy gamers and those who are like, they're just there to hang out and have fun with people.
Now, be honest. How much of this decision was just because it's number 1 and it has the word one in it?
I'm going to be honest. I actually did not think about it until you brought up your Just One. I'm like, oh, mine's number 1. Oh, wait, it's number 1.
All right. Because if it were me, that would have been like 40% of the reason.
I wasn't clever enough to make that connection.
It's a tough connection to draw. All right. So Just One, your number 1, which leaves me with my number 1. And it is on my list. My number 1 party game is Two Rooms and a Boom. And the reason that this is my number 1 party game is because I don't think any other game exemplifies a party so well as this one does. Whereas all these other games are games you play during a party, at a party, a part of a party. Two Rooms and a Boom really, it could be the party.
I got you, yeah.
And what's so fun about it and how that works is that as you're playing, you're also socializing. It's, a great icebreaker if you're around people you don't know. You can just have a conversation and then casually be like, by the way, I'll share my secret role with you if you share mine, because that's like a thing we can do. And maybe this ties into another aspect of it. And just for all the variations, and also the fact that, like you said, with a huge group, that's the best party, right? Is when you have like a ton of people there. And I wish we could get this one out more often. It's hard because, like you said,
like I said, it's one of the big problems why it's a little bit lower on mine. Is like it is amazing in its element.
Yeah, but
I can't argue with what you said. It will be the party.
It's the party. It's the party game. That's why it's my number 1. Now, before we get to some more discussion, I do just want to highlight, we asked our Patreon supporters what some of their choices would be, and we're going to read some of those out to you right now. Hoser40K also said Just One, and Wits and Wagers, specifically the Vegas version of it. Also shouted out Codenames as well. Fernando Martinez said Monikers, especially when acting it out. And also a game called Don't Get Got. Says could be a blast in a party setting. Not familiar with that one.
Sounds really familiar, and I bet if I saw the cover, I'd remember it.
Well, we'll have to. People watching will see the cover, so we'll have to check that one out. Beam Me Up Kitty also mentioned Monikers as well as Telestrations and Two Rooms and a Boom. Another vote for Two Rooms. Simon Fontaine said Bang the Dice Game. Yeah, Bang, a pretty popular party game that neither of us mentioned. Christopher Deonda, another vote for monikers and just one, and code names. Also mentioned Pit, which that's a classic one that we have enjoyed from time to time. Scott Armstrong said Liar's Dice or Apples to Apples with Family, but I think we can all agree the greatest party game of all time, according to Scott Armstrong, is Advertising 2.
Oh, yes, of course.
It's a little reference to our Seinfeld video from a while back.
So
a lot of good things from there. Would we want to talk runners up first?
Yeah, I do, because one of them is, not disqualified is the right word, but like, it feels like it's what's the term? Not always run up. It's
Bridesmaid, Never the Bride.
No, I can never think. We said it
Consolation
before.
prize.
Anyways, it's
honorable mention.
Honorable mention, yes. It's Iron and Nail. I think this is an amazing drinking game, but that's the issue. It's a drinking game, and we did play this with a few people who didn't drink. But I really feel like if you have people who aren't comfortable drinking, take out anything else on our list, because that's why Bar Pig, I don't think you're going to have too much of a difference if people are drinking. There's nothing wrong with plenty of these games. That one, I do feel like you're going to start to be like, oh, look all the silliness that's happening because it's an amazing game if everyone wants to participate.
For me, the issue isn't the drinking; it's the physicality of it.
I like that.
Yeah, you have to be willing to like arm wrestle and like jump on each other, and that's not my kind of thing. So yeah, that's why it's not my.
Now these are much more like runner-ups. Medium.
Oh yeah, Medium was one I definitely thought about. Really, really fun, really good.
It's one of the ones where it becomes a little bit harder because it's sitting order and people can not feel like when we were sitting next to each other, we did amazing.
Yeah.
But this is one that is on the newer end. I've really liked. I want to play it more, and that's Bristol.
1350.
Yes, 1350. That whole line, I think, is very unique in the party genre, and is definitely one you should take a look at. I just chose that one because that's the most recent one we played, and we need to play them all more, but I think that's the one I really liked a lot. I thought it was really clever and interesting in terms of the hidden trader mechanic. Technically, I'd say you could say it has.
Yeah. But all good ones. All right, so runners up for me. I will say probably the biggest one that I feel like should be on my list, but it's again like it's pretty new. I just wasn't sure. That's Wavelength. I have really enjoyed my time with it. I haven't been able to play it with like a larger group yet.
Yes, so we can't say it for party, which is why actually we'll get into after you're all your.
So there's that. Another hidden role one I really love is Growl. So that kind of was close to making the cut.
I forgot that one. I got you.
Decrypto also like a runner-up for me, as was Medium. Coup pretty close, but I kind of was like, I have Resistance. That's kind of fits that bill a little bit.
There's one more I want to say quickly. Say Anything.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I forgot.
That's a good one.
Now, this is where
actually, can I say also?
Sure.
Here's a real honorable mention because it's technically not a board game, but the Jackbox Party Pack games.
Oh yeah,
those are all very. They have a lot of good stuff in them.
Okay. Well, it depends which ones.
Yes,
and definitely.
That's why I stopped myself when I said all.
Here are some of the things I was thinking about in terms of party game. You know, this is the fun when we argue about the definition. One, and this is not really, I think, a must in it, but something I've noticed more in party games, especially Jackbox is a good example. The people around that you're playing with really do matter. Like if you have someone who's not into drawing or someone who's not funny for some of the Jackpot games.
It's a problem with us, let me tell you. You can tell from watching our show.
But okay, going to the seriousness, like some of the games like Mysterium I thought about. Part of the problem is, and yes, we have games when someone is a judge, like the werewolf for the round. Or not the werewolf, the mayor, they could be the wolf.
Yeah, whatever.
Is something about Mysterium just like, because that one person is out of the game, they're the ghost. To me, some reason felt like that definitely feels more like less of a party and more like...
Yeah, you're not laughing when you're playing Mysterium. You're going, like you're thinking really hard. You know what I mean? So I think that's for me why, whereas Dixit, you're just smiling. You know?
Yes, and that's also why I thought about it and I really do enjoy it. And you want a big group, but Captain Sonar.
Yeah.
Which is definitely closer, I feel, but it definitely feels more like I am really just my competitive. It feels like how much am I going to go like full competitive? I feel I need to? I guess.
Mm-hmm.
On most of these games, I'm like the journey is so much more fun.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of the party experience.
And now this is where I think I'm going to clash with you a little bit.
Oh boy,
going with player counts. If a game can fit a full player count, that's fine. But do I feel I would be playing at the higher count? Like to me, Codenames is 4.
I will just say I am shocked Codenames wasn't on your list.
That was the thing. I felt like I don't play as a party game. I played almost as like like if it's just a regular game group.
Interesting. Yeah, no, to me,
that's why it doesn't.
I think almost any game that's a word game, I automatically put in a party category, I think. But yeah, I think,
that's why I'm saying like it's not because I don't like the
minority
game.
on that.
I know, but that's just saying that's how
it's your list. It's your
why it didn't make my list, and I just felt like that's how I think of playing Codenames.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I mean, that's fair. I mean, I get that. I think that's a fair reason to leave it off. But yeah, it is a good one.
Yeah, I'm not arguing the validity of it being just a good game.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think that sums it up. It's the party games. It's a bit of a tricky area, but these are all really, really good ones.
And of course, there are plenty that we haven't played, or like I've played Monikers once, so it's like
definitely.
And I wasn't even with you.
Soon.
Yeah. And I definitely need to do that.
Yeah, there's always more great ones coming out there. Let us know if you're watching this. What are your favorite party games? How much do you agree or disagree with our personal lists? Talk to us in the comments section. We would love to hear from you, or let us know, if you've had experiences with anything that we've talked about, or if you want to get together with us at some point to help us fill out a game of 2 rooms and a boom.
Mm-hmm. We'd love that. Really, we would. We would love to see those higher player counts.
Yeah.
But until that happens, I'm Will.
I'm Jonathan.
And this has been a Roll for Crit party.
Thanks for watching. Why not like the video and subscribe to our channel? Maybe even ring that bell for us. We're also on Patreon. If you want to go over there, you can support us for just a few dollars a month and get some cool rewards in exchange for that. And we have a merch store. If you're looking for a way to show off your Roll for Crit love on t-shirts, we've got new designs coming out every so often. You don't want to miss any of those. So check out all those links in the description down below.